Hey everybody, welcome. It is the RambleCast. This is December 20th. It's almost Christmas, people. And I am your host, Cody Toombs. And in the chat with me, I have a Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
So, how's everyone doing? Merry Christmas and all that good jazz. Um, I'll tell you, news this week is not promising a very Merry Christmas for some people, but we'll get to that in a moment. Um, I will quickly say I do have a surprise in store. It's a little surprise, but I do have a surprise in store later in this stream. Uh, but in the meantime, hey, how's it going, Diablo and Curvy Mermaid, and anyone else who's watching right now? Hope you're all doing well. Corbin, how are you
Yes.
doing?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit tired. It's very cold outside. It was flipping back and forth between like 70s and below freezing for a while, and we've settled on slightly above freezing for most of the day. So, little bit chilly.
Between 70s and below freezing. That is
I'm sure
that
I'm
is a
sure it's
swing.
fine. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with the climate. Um, we're all good.
Words that I expect to hear from a Georgian. Yeah, that checks out. Um Man, Georgia and weather is I know you're not in Georgia obviously, but Georgia and weather.
I
That
think
that'll
yeah,
break
I
anyone's
think
concept
it's
of what climate should be.
Yeah, I don't see. I don't know if it's like a regional, like South thing or not, because it is so funny. Like, because you do see the same thing where every single person like post, like you see them like these memes constantly where people are like, "Oh, we've got our, we're back to third winter," and you can see it's been like edited so many times because people just put in their state or wherever they're from in it. So I don't actually know if that's probably a thing that happened. I definitely like all of the South has like the same exact climate. Um, it's just when you get into like closer to the mountains, you usually get more snow. But I don't live anywhere near there, so yeah.
I mean, given where you live, mountains don't really, well, I don't know. Here on the West Coast, our concept of what a mountain is and your concept of what a mountain is are two different things.
Yeah.
You guys have a hill where like you've got to walk up a 1 degree incline and you're like, "Oh my god, this is so high." We 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 drive up a thing where you could like drop a bouncy ball from an inch high and within like 5 minutes it's bouncing literally like a quarter mile high with every hit. Like, yeah, it's some wild stuff. um
Okay. Gatekeeping mountains over here.
yes, damn right.
Okay.
um
Our
the,
mountains are so old they have dinosaurs in them. So take that, liberals.
um wow, I want to make a joke about.
That's
Oh,
like my
actually, no.
single
There's an
fun
obvious
fact.
joke to be made there. Stop talking
Okay.
about Mount Rushmore, sir.
All
Yeah,
right, that's pretty good. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I had a different version of this where there was gonna be like, wait, which president went up into the mountains to die? But
Yeah.
then, yeah, it's like, no, wait,
Are you
Rushmore. That's the obvious joke here.
now? Are you familiar with our tourist attraction, the South Racist Mount Rushmore?
I mean, I've
I've,
never
I've
been, but
yeah,
I've heard of it. Yes.
I've been several times.
Well, that explains a lot, sir.
Not not
Who
not of my own.
publishes on Substack?
Yeah, not of my own volition. I assure everyone. But
Uh huh.
yes, Georgia does have uh, a shitty Mount Rushmore. It's just like some dudes carved into, I think it's like a granite wall, like it was a mine or something. I'm not really totally clear. Uh, but it's like Confederate generals. I think the president of the Confederacy for all the like 6 months it lasted is on there. Uh, and there's like a park around it, and they do like laser shows where they project onto the wall. And it was privately constructed, I believe, and then of course the state of Georgia bought it, so it's owned by them now.
Mm.
Yeah, one of the most popular tourist attractions in Georgia, actually. So that's fun.
Being that it's Georgia, some part of me thinks it's weird that it's not, like instead of being carved into granite, it seems like it should probably be carved into coal, and they probably should have paved over a wetland to make the parking lot.
Yeah.
Wow, my opinion of Georgia is not good.
I mean, you know,
For a state that just
there's
turned blue.
there's it's like every state. There's good parts and there's bad parts. Bad part is the the Confederate
Well,
mountain
that's a pretty bad
that
part.
is owned by the state, and all the other random shit that's still around. Good times. North Carolina's got some of that too. It's always fun.
Oh, yes. Yes, it certainly does.
The Confederacy, which I will remind once again, has lasted about, I believe, half as long as my dog has been alive, and is a very important history to a lot of people here.
Okay, a lot of things, were big historical moments and did not last particularly long. You know, bubonic plague.
That's nothing. That's fine.
Anyway, wow.
Anyway, we were talking about technology, right? I forgot what we were talking
Were
about.
we? I don't know.
All right.
Also,
fine.
hello to Austin, who
You're now subscribed to Southern U.S. Facts. You cannot unsubscribe.
Okay, legit. How funny would it be to do a show on that? That sort of like drunk history, but
yeah.
not.
I don't have a lot of like fun facts about specifically the Southern United States, unfortunately. I know Blackbeard, he often his like main port was in North Carolina. That's a fun fact.
See, you say you don't have any fun facts. I argue that almost all facts can be fun if you just laugh at them instead of with them.
Right. Okay. So anyway, 9/11.
See? Fun.
Yeah. It's all Austin, it's about states, right? Yeah.
I mean,
it's the war of northern aggression, of course.
That's
I'm kidding. I'm not racist.
uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Anyway,
how about that Apple Watch?
Apple Watch. Yeah.
Look at that
Yes.
desperate non sequitur.
Apple Watches, much like slavery, are now illegal.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
No, legitimately, I would high five you for that one. Good freaking job. That was spectacular.
Yeah, so Apple and this other company are having a patent dispute that will, unless something changes very soon. Well, actually, I think the deadline was tomorrow. I believe Apple was trying to stall it, and that just failed today, I want to say. So, so the International Trade Commission is banning sales of the Apple Watch Series 9 and the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which are the latest generations of those products. So, like, I guess Apple can. Well, I don't know how far Apple sells like previous gen watches after the new ones comes out. I don't think it's quite to the extent of like iPhones where they stick around for like 2 years.
If I recall, this is one of those situations where they basically just pick one of the previous generations to keep selling.
Okay. So yeah, presumably they've got some Series 8s they can drag out. Probably still some Watch Ultras. They're still selling the this doesn't cover the current Apple Watch SE, so that's still there. Um, Now I believe these. When does the sale bans? Yeah, it's December 24th. So like, I saw a couple people being like, "Oh no, it's gonna ruin the holiday shopping it was gonna do." No, it's
No.
not. Um,
That may be one of, well, okay. So I will say this. Anyone who's looking to give somebody a Apple Watch as a Christmas gift probably already bought it. Granted,
yeah,
I'm sure there's always some number of people who are like, "Oh no, I need a last minute gift. Let's run down to the
yeah.
Apple store and spend
The guy,
$450 buying a watch
yeah,
for somebody." I'm sure that happens.
the
But
guy he gets his paycheck on December 23rd.
yeah.
Like, I've got this.
However, I will grant there's certainly a number of people who are waiting until Christmas to see either A, if they receive an Apple Watch, and if they don't, they'll go buy one. Or more likely, they're going to receive like Apple gift cards or money or whatever,
True.
and they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, cool, now I can afford to go buy that Apple Watch that I've wanted." Those people, yeah, are kind of SOL. And that's, I guess, sucks.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, chances are this is going to get worked out in a few weeks, and then they're going to be like, "Okay, cool, I can go get it now."
Yeah. And if you like desperately need an Apple Watch right now, I'm sure they're on Swappa. You can go get one.
Oh yeah.
It might have a little scratch on it, but it's fine.
Actually, I would not be surprised for a second if there's also going to be some scalpers who are currently standing in line at an Apple store being like, "You know what? It's not going to be worth much, but I can make like 40-50 bucks selling this thing just because Apple won't right now."
Mm-hmm.
And they will.
Yeah.
Like that's actually a pretty good investment. And worst case scenario, because Apple currently has a long return period, if it turns out that they can't sell those Apple Watches during the next 6 weeks, is it? No. 5 weeks. They have 5 weeks until Apple's extended return period is up. They, at the end of that, if they haven't sold at a markup, they can just run down to the Apple store and be like, here's some unopened packages. Take them back.
Mm-hmm.
Which, now that I've said that, that's actually a really great idea I wish I had thought of earlier. I'm kind of not kidding.
Diablo said, "Come on, $1 trillion company. How do you think they got there? Do you think they got there by paying for patents? No.
Oh, it's
You just don't have the Omega grind mindset to be Tim Cook."
Corbin, for someone who says that he's not racist, right wing, or conservative, you sure know a lot of their talking points.
I promise I'm not.
Oh, this is going to be a fun show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, Apple Watch banned. It's illegal. The police will shoot you if you are wearing one. So go get your Garmin's out of the closet. Get your Casios. I got a new band for my $13 Casio watch recently, and it's pretty cool. It's not on my desk, it's in the other room, but it's a nice little watch when I don't want something that's like buzzing on my arm or keeps asking to update to an iOS version because someone found a 0 day in my watch again.
So, all told, the issue here is over the blood oxygen sensor, and specifically the technology that's used, which was patented by a medical tech company called Massimo, or Massimo, who cares how it's said. But anyway,
Mastanto.
Yeah.
Your Apple Watch will deploy toxic chemicals.
I mean, that actually could happen. But Yeah, anyway, so this is a the patent dispute is over this specific type of blood oxygen sensor. In all practicality, what's probably going to happen is Apple's either A, going to reach some sort of deal with them after, let's say, a week of not being able to sell their watch, or B, they'll release a firmware that just disables that sensor, which that's a pretty big thing to take away, to be fair. But they could release a firmware update that's disabling that sensor, at which point they can resume selling the watch. Because generally speaking, the ITC is pretty okay with the idea of saying, oh, you can include the hardware. As long as it's not operational, it doesn't violate the patent. Like, a lot of companies have had to do this over the past several years. Google literally just did it for a while over the Sonos patents. That's why the like group, the speaker groups thing got taken away.
Right.
The one catch here. Go ahead.
Even with what I thought you were going to bring up was the fact that this happens with all of these smartwatches that have like a blood oxygen sensor or one of the other sensors, I forget which, but that's when it gets into the category that's normally like medical devices. So I know Samsung has done this a couple of times, Apple might have done this as well, is they will release the watch but with those sensors turned off while they wait for the government in each country to like accept it as a medical device or whatever. So we, went through this, country by country with, I remember I was writing when it was going on with Samsung watches where they'd be like, all right, South Korea approved the blood oxygen sensor. It's like, oh, now Canada allow it. So they're going to flip the switch on. So, so this is like not that weird for like that feature specifically.
Yeah, they're used to doing things like this. The obvious catch to this, because there is one thing that makes this different. Apple has advertised the watch specifically with this feature. Unfortunately, if they do disable it via firmware, it opens them up to, say it with me, false advertising lawsuits. It's actually a possibility that a bunch of customers who lose this feature could end up turning around and saying, oh, yeah, no, we bought it for that. We swear that's the only reason we bought it. You should give us money. And yes, that's a class action suit I think Apple would also like to avoid. So I'm not sure exactly what the circumstances are going to be here, but it's possible the I don't think it's the ITC, but it's possible the courts will decide Apple has to deactivate that feature. I'm not sure if that's a thing or not. But yeah, for existing users, I think Apple's best bet is to not mess with this. They should keep that feature active as long as possible. And maybe, I don't know, figure out a way to say that new Apple Watches, like, disable it until they work out a deal, maybe? I don't know. Somewhere along the way, though, they probably want to solve this. Yeah, exactly, Diablo. Which one's cheaper? To pay out for a class action lawsuit, or to just pay for the damn patent?
Or buy the company.
Yeah, that too. Well, and Apple's famous for this. They love to come out with stuff and then try to screw over the company that made the technology and has a patent on it. Get their stock value low enough that you can then go buy them for cheap. This has happened actually a lot of times, and Apple's sort of famously guilty for doing this stuff. By the way, Google has done it a couple times too. But yeah. Yeah, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen.
Yep.
So let's see. Do we have any more we want to say on that?
No.
Nope. Okay. Well, Corbin always has more to say. We've we know that. We're kind of used to it. He never shuts up. But this time he's not talking, he's writing. And he has thoughts about the dynamic island.
Yes, I wrote a thing for my newsletter about how annoyed I am with the dynamic island on it's on the iPhone 14 Pro and all of the iPhone 15 phones. And it's this thing at the top where it has a little bar where the basically, instead of the notch, there's now a little like cutout on the screen, and it sort of expands to show like if you have a timer, it'll show on the side of it. It kind of expand, and you can like hold like tap down on it to make whatever's displayed in that area bigger. So if it's like a timer, it might show a little like progress indicator, and then you hold down on it and it appears more like a notification. Um, it's it's kind of a cool idea. When I got the iPhone at first, it's like, yeah, this is neat. Like kind of doing something interesting with what most, when Android phones do camera cutouts, it's just like a hole in the screen, and just, everything's kind of working around it. But, I guess it's, kind of interesting that Apple wanted to call attention to it. Um, Still kind of, doing the thing where a lot of the marketing materials for the iPhone kind of fade to black as they get to the top of the screen. The classic that a lot of Android phones with cutouts also do, and Apple does also with their MacBooks that have the screen cutout. That's always fun, but I've I've not been a fan of it because it's just weird. Like the behavior with it isn't really consistent. Sometimes you have multiple things that like can go in there, so then they kind of like squeeze to make room for each other. Uh, there's issues where like I see it the most often when I'm playing music, because when you play music, the iPhone will put a little like audio visualizer of it up there along with like the album art, which is kind of cool. Um, but then when I pause the music, like if I want to pause the music, I can hold down on it and hit pause. And then if I go do something a few seconds later, that's just gone. Like the song has disappeared from that top thing, and I have to go unpause it from a completely different place, which just seems like bad UX. Um, like I don't really know why you would make like the most visible controls the one that disappears. That seems not good design. Um, so really, I'm just kind of annoyed at it because one of my few remaining like big complaints with iOS is how terrible notifications are. Like Apple has had I don't know how many years to just like clone Android. Like Google got this mostly figured out. I have some qualms with like more recent Android versions and how they handle notifications and sort of the quick setting stuff. I think like probably peak phone notifications for me was like maybe KitKat. Like I did like the idea of like the notifications coming down and you can press a button and it like swaps to the quick settings, or you can like if you know like which corner of the screen to swipe down from, you can get to it pretty easily. That was a pretty good idea. Um, Anything like that would be nice. Apple instead just has a notification panel that's like the same as the lock screen for some stupid reason. It's really bizarre. Like when I want to check my notifications, I don't need a clock picking up a third of my screen. That's crazy. What are you guys doing? It's fine if it's that way on the lock screen. But because the lock screen and the notification panel on iOS are functionally the same thing, they both have that. So my issue with the dynamic island is that why like this is not getting us closer to better notifications or keeping track of live things that are happening. Uh, like what would get us closer is maybe using that area to show icons for notifications you might have waiting, like Android has done for 15 years. Maybe that'd be a good idea, Apple. Or just any like show me a dot that says I have unread notifications. And what's really funny is that I know Apple thinks this is a good idea because there is a notification dot on the Apple Watch. When you
Mm.
have an Apple Watch, on the top of the little like watch face, there's a like orange dot when you have an unread notification. But we can't have that on the phone for some reason. We have to have this stupid island thing. It's just very silly. Um, so I think it was neat, for a week, and I was like, oh wait, this isn't doing what what I was kind of hoping for. Again, sometimes it's fun, like it is kind of a cool. It's helpful in the same way that like Windows apps sometimes have helpful taskbar icons that tell you kind of what's happening at a quick glance. It's that same sort of idea, but that's fine on Windows because there's so much empty space in the taskbar. Like it doesn't really matter what they want to do down there. But on modern iPhones, when they have like a pretty substantial like screen curve on the sides, and then about like half of the remaining area is taken up by the cameras, it seems like not what you should be doing. Like I'd love a notification dot. I didn't really mention this in the post, but like another issue I have on iPhones is that I will switch to a VPN because something is like broken or weird, or I need to test what a site looks like in a different region or something, and I'll just forget it's running, because like there's no way for me to check unless I open the control panel and then there's a little VPN icon. Um, and I believe when I had my iPhone SE, it would usually be in the status bar, but because again there's less room in the status bar on these phones, I don't know that I'm still in the VPN. So that was my rant. It's it's kind of a silly UI element. Um, I just really want them to copy Android. Um, I don't really know what the holdup is.
um, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we're into year whatever of saying, hey, they should just copy Android, and consistently, continually, they fail to take the hint, which is one of those classic like, whoops, why does Apple choose to be different about certain things? I remember when I first switched to Mac, or well, I guess this was before I switched. It was when I first started trying a Mac. Um, one of the learning curve issues I had, and one of the annoyances I had is I found just dozens of things that I thought, hey, here's a thing Windows did right, Windows did first, and Apple just saw that and was like, you know what? We want to have the same feature or the same function, but we're gonna do it different just to be different, so we can say our thing is different. And yeah, that wasn't good. It was never good like that. But they had a really, really strong tendency to do it that way for whatever reason.
Yeah, and like this is just a weird thing that like Apple. I don't think Apple's design people have ever really figured out how to do notifications, because on Mac there's no indicator either, really. Well, actually, I say that. Oh no, that's my that's the indicator that I'm using my microphone. That's not the notifications.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no,
Yeah.
they don't have any sort of real notifications. Well, no indicator.
Yeah.
You basically just have to open up the side panel. I forget what it's technically called, and yeah, they're either
Yeah.
there or they're not. And
And then on iPhone, but also kind of sort of Mac, they expect you to like look at the app icons, which is just it's so silly on iPhone. It made sense when the iPhone had like 10 apps total, but now like I most of the apps on my phone are not on my home screen. I just search for them when I need them, so I don't see that. So again, I'm in the situation where like when I was on Android, I was clearing my notifications out, no problem, because it's like, oh, they're there. I gotta do something with them. It's like a to-do list basically.
Hmm.
But on iPhone, it's like, well, there's a notification from 3 months ago in here. I'll just leave that there. Nothing matters. Um,
Yeah.
it's very weird. It all needs to be reworked, and I don't think they figured out what they want to do there. Um,
Which
I like,
after a decade, that's a problem.
yeah, I
So,
think they made it worse because iPhones didn't used to like have the lock screen and the notification panels the same thing. They used to just be completely separate, and then after a while they got the idea that like, hey, when you customize your lock screen, wouldn't it be cool if like that also applied to like this notification shade thing? um
well, they've gone through three phases. Let's not forget there was a phase where there were no actual like distinguishable notifications. You just had a modal dialog box pop up when something happened,
yeah,
and you could maybe tap a button to open the app and deal with it right then and there, or you tapped a different button and it just goes away and there's no getting it back, there's no seeing it again, it's gone. That
it's just
used to
like
be a
browsing
thing.
the web.
Yeah. And that lasted for a shockingly long time. That lasted until, I want to say, until Android was hitting 4.0 or something. Um, at which point Apple copied the notification shade, which had many problems. Their version of it had a lot of problems, particularly that like 8 pixel by 8 pixel close button or clear button that you had to tap twice perfectly in order to clear a notification. Yeah, they screwed up a lot. Um, and then progressively they fixed it a little bit, and then turned it into that lock screen version you're describing now, which none of these have been good. They just had
No,
one that was slightly less terrible.
like if I was like gonna try to find a method in the madness, I'm sure part of their thing here is like you don't really need to see notifications that much, right? They're a distraction. But it's like, no, I need to see, I need to know, did I get an important work email? Did I get a text from my mom? Like I need to know these things. Um it's just I don't really know. Um that's definitely like the one big sore point I have with iPhone at this point. Everything else, like I have a bunch of other complaints, but they're like not, substantially worse than what is on Android, or they're kind of like swapped.
Yeah.
Like there's some things I like not really a fan of on Android, and there's some of that sort of same intensity on iPhone. Like I'd like it if my iPhone also had better web app support, but that's less important than you know, again, important work emails.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I'll agree. It's not like there's a lot on an iPhone that I look at and go, "Ooh, I'd like that." But there are a few things, and yeah, I'd like it if Android could adopt a few more of those things. But it mostly doesn't matter. Um, as it is, I feel like I am definitely not the power user that I used to be, and I would even go so far as to say that I'm the opposite of a power user at this stage. I've very much turned to using my phone mostly the way normal people would use a phone,
Yeah.
um, with a few exceptions,
There's
obviously. But
there's definitely a pattern I've seen in myself and other people I've talked to, uh, where it's like 10 years ago, we're like, hell yeah, we're flashing custom kernels, we're downloading the nightly builds of CyanogenMod as soon as they drop. I got to get those changes. And then, like, 5 years later, it's like, all right, I'm gonna stick on to the stock ROM, but I'm still doing the custom launcher. I'm changing the default apps, and then eventually I get to the point where I'm just like, I changed the wallpaper. I'm done. That's my that's my customization. Sometimes I forget to do that. It's fine.
There are definitely a few things that I do when I set up a phone, but it's a pretty short list at this stage. Um, and part of this does stem from the fact that I did flash ROMs so much. I don't
Hmm.
feel like customizing a phone several times. I want to set it up and just kind of trust that the defaults are there. And since it's so hard to reliably change a lot of defaults in any sort of good fast way, and sometimes like between phones you don't even have a whole lot of options, so more often than not, I've just sort of determined I will just be okay with the defaults. I'd
Yeah.
rather I'd rather decide for myself to be okay with the defaults than to be one of those people's like, okay, I need to now spend 6 hours going through every screen, every menu, trying to find where stuff moved to, or like between versions of Android, they changed how this thing works or that thing works, especially those of you out there who have any sort of feelings about the do not disturb settings. Because, oh boy, those have changed. Like every version of Android, those keep changing. I've never cared much about them. Fortunately, I'm one of those people who doesn't really need to worry about them that much. But yeah, there are people out there who just really hate the do not disturb defaults, and they have to relearn or tweak them every major version and every time their phone gets set up. That sucks. I'm
Yeah,
happy I
that
don't have to do that.
that was some of my favorite Rita content at Android Police was the yearly, oh, they fucked up the settings app post, and the yearly they fucked up the do not disturb.
Yeah.
Just every time, every year they changed something and just made it better and worse simultaneously in almost an impressive manner. But yeah, again, like I got the iPhone SE last year to be like, hey, can I deal with iOS? Is this like better for me? It's like, yeah, it's got some stupid stuff, but um, it's fine.
It's got some stupid stuff, but it's fine.
It's fine. I don't know when I get emails.
uh,
uh,
I will say, and kind of just because it was a recent topical thing, um, I appreciate something that MKBHD did say during his phone awards, which, for those who have watched it, well, you saw it, and then I imagine you had a good nap somewhere partway through. And for those who haven't watched it, if you'd like to fall asleep, check it out. Sorry, MKBHD, Marquez. I got to throw you a little bit of crap because it was dry. It was drier than Thanksgiving turkey. But no, anyway. Um, but it is out, so go watch if you're so inclined. But one thing he did say is at this point, it's actually hard to get a bad phone. At this point, basically every flagship phone is going to be pretty great, and even a lot of the mid-range and budget phones are good. Like there's rarely anything objectively terrible about any phone now. And yeah, the iPhone SE is kind of, it's got its problems, but it's still overall a pretty good phone.
yeah, I mean, not even like going into Apple show mode. Like if you can deal with the smaller screen, which is becoming more difficult because stuff is just not designed for that form factor as much anymore. If you can deal with that, that's still like a really good mid-range phone, because it's very fast. Camera's fine when I had it. It's gonna get software updates for eternity. Like I think I have an original iPhone SE in the drawer behind me, and it just stopped getting major iOS updates. Or I don't know if it was last year, but you know, no one's no one's beating the. Um, but yeah, and that is like definitely one of the more um, impressive things I've seen, sort of in my not gonna say lifetime, but like my lifetime being a conscious person in the world, as opposed to like an 8-year-old, is uh, smartphones becoming like as accessible as almost as possible. Just in terms of like there are smartphones on you know, when you're at the grocery store and there's like the last row as you get to the register of like the oops, I decided I want candy or a USB cable, and I see smartphones on there sometime, like prepaid, some kind of smartphone. Like, I think we hit it. I think we got smartphones to almost everyone here. It's that those are not good phones, but like they're gonna, they can take pictures, they can browse the web, they're gonna work for Facebook. Um, and definitely once you get up to like the mid-range stuff, like mid-range phones have been pretty good for a couple years now. Like I tried the, I mean, I had the like I had the Pixel 3a back when that was new. Good phone. That was a pretty good phone. Before that, I had the original Moto G. That was pretty good at the time. I liked the replaceable backs. I had I had like 2 or 3 colors I was swapping between on the back of my phone. That was fun. But yeah, definitely like very firmly the period where the baseline is very high for these things. So we're really just arguing about like, oh, which one has like weirder colors in the camera photos, or it's really just like camera and software support. Like those things are very like final frontier. And stuff like foldables is a completely different discussion because that's a different form factor that's still like very rapidly. Actually, I don't know if it's rapidly evolving. It feels like
I was gonna say, I think we've already hit.
Yeah, once Samsung got to the folds that like weren't like detonating in people's hands, we're like, all right, we're good, we got there.
There's 2 versions of Fold. There's the tablet and there's a flip phone. And
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to see any other version. I mean, to be fair, it's not like there's a lot of different ways to do a folding phone given the technology anyway. But yeah,
right.
those
I'm
are the
not
2
going to be.
versions, and I think they're sticking around.
Yeah, I'm not going to be getting my scroll phone anytime soon, unfortunately.
I do want that.
Yeah, even though it's been at like every CES for the past 10 years. Some display makers like, guys, we can make these. Does anyone want to try to use them for anything? No? Okay.
Mm-hmm. By the way,
even if the screen folds, not necessarily everything else can.
yeah. Diablo did comment, only way to go wrong is to actually try being a potato in regards to like good and bad phones. I don't know if you watched MKBHD's phone awards, but just to point out, they did do the bust of the year section, and he did give it to, and the name says it all, the Solana Saga crypto phone. That's how you do a bad phone. Mm-hmm. I think we can all universally agree crypto is how you do a bad phone. HTC tried it. This company that I don't think has ever mattered tried it. I'm sure some others had. Didn't OnePlus dabble in this a little? I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, do a crypto phone. Bad.
Yeah, I mean, good on those like awesome company guys for finessing that crypto company to paying for them to enter production. Glad you guys got your bag, but final product is definitely something I was substantially less interested in than the earlier stages. It's like being a disappointed father. where I was writing, but I think I did an interview sort of with someone over there in the earlier stages, and they seemed nice. I think it was an interview. I was like, someone at XTA asked me like, I can't make this. Can you do? I'm like, sure, I will. Okay. uh, but yeah, they seem nice, and then like a year later, it's like, oh, it's a crypto phone now. Ugh, guys, come on now.
Yeah. So, let's see. And I won't go through listing phones, but I will say over the years I've had a few phones that struck me as okay, a few that have been, I would say, really really great phones, and a couple that I would circle back to and say, no, they screwed this one up. Like this some particular phones have been kind of objectively failures. Um, but not so much that I regret them, more just I can see why they weren't really, they should have been better. Um, Austin saying apparently the Solana phone actually is worth, or they're pulling like $5,000 on eBay. Why does it I feel like this is a scam? Like somebody's, part of me thinks that somebody has to be like selling these things, uh, and
This
buying
goes
them
to
themselves, like just to
this
make the
goes.
price look higher or something.
Um,
Um,
so they're okay. This is a um in the midst of the oh god, these crypto websites, in the midst of the bonk meme coin frenzy, Solana Saga phones, initially overshadowed by lackluster sales, have become unexpected stars on the resale market. See, I thought they were still selling these. I didn't know they were like, I guess, discontinued. Um, Originally, each Saga phone purchase included a generous airdrop of 30 million tokens as the value of the tokens escalated. Okay, so they're buying it for the included fake money, not the phones. Okay,
right.
nice. Well,
This is weird and dumb.
yeah, good for those people, I guess, who are profiting. They're making real money from the people trying to buy them to acquire the fake money. Although all money is fake, but crypto far more so.
Yeah. Wow. That is, I don't
Yeah. I've
know.
heard almost nothing about them since this phone was released. Like, are they still alive? Like, what are they doing?
Oh, I assume the company is probably, well, no, they're probably still going.
What's their Twitter account
It's
doing?
really hard to kill a cockroach.
Their Twitter account is posted 2 hours ago. Um, or no, wait, this is the company that also owns other stuff. This is not the phone people. Okay, the Solana mobile account. They're active. It seems like. Okay, so it looks like they totally sold out of the phone on December 15th, according to them. I'll put this in the YouTube chat.
This is punishing.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess it like they sold out of their remaining when their stupid coin went up in value. That's why people are excited. There's so many people excited for this phone. I feel like I'm in some parallel reality reading these replies. Um, well, good for someone, I guess. I don't know. Hope
I
again.
just can't find anything good to say about this.
Yeah. Hopefully, the people who made this phone have the opportunity to make a non-crypto phone at some point, but also like I can't find it in myself to care about other Android manufacturers trying to enter this market, because even though, as we've talked about, like the bar for being like a good phone is like pretty low at this point. Like a lot of stuff you buy will be fine. A lot of that is because of the five companies
Yeah.
that have just gone to places that are very hard for anyone else to get to. Like the amount of infrastructure and people you need at like Samsung, for example, to uh, be able to support a phone for 4 years into the future. That's a level of support that is difficult. Like we saw Essential try really hard to do that, but they failed because they were a small company with limited resources, and also their founder turned out to be not a good person, we'll say. And that
We'll
kind
just
of
call
made
it
the
problematic.
money ran out. Yeah. So, like,
To be fair, I don't
every
think it was
time,
just that money ran out. I think interest in the product was
yeah.
sort
Well,
of doomed to be very niche.
yeah, and it didn't come out that like they wasn't Andy like not. I feel like there were some reports of like him like micromanaging and just not being happy with anything
Oh yeah,
being made,
yeah.
so
That
nothing
he
got
was
out the door.
famously one of those people.
Yeah, because they had a bunch of prototypes that never went anywhere. Um, so yeah, like, and the most recent example of like a quote unquote smaller manufacturer trying to make it is Nothing, which absolutely most insufferable tech company that is not directly tied to crypto.
Not directly.
Just just like I cannot take Carl. I was at my limit with Carl before he left OnePlus, and he brought all of the most annoying marketing practices to that company. They hyped up that damn phone, and in the end, we got just it's a fine, normal Android phone with lights.
Yeah.
That's what we got. And
Um. Also, I'm just gonna say I know technically yes, it is a different company, and or not technically, it is absolutely a different company, but I kind of feel like it's not really. We're not talking about something really that different. This is just
right,
one person who brought many of his other people with him moved, like they started a new company. That's it. Like it's still the same basic storyline. I think the people behind the company are a big part of what decides whether or not it's a good place to buy from.
yeah, it's definitely hard, especially with Android phones specifically. You run into the problem where if you're a company trying to, let's say, compete against Samsung, you have to make a product that is competitive on price but also unique in some respect. But like, what are you going to do that's unique? Because every Android phone in the US is running the same software stack. Gonna be, they're running one of like five chips from Qualcomm,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one from MediaTek. So you can't really like differentiate yourself unless you do it with marketing, which is what Carl did.
Yeah.
Um, so like, it just leads to a very like uninteresting ecosystem where, again, kind of like with cars, where like you just get so entrenched, and the processes to build up these products become so high that it's like almost impossible for anyone to break into the market. And even when they do, like it might not be like better than what exists. Like really the only newer car maker we've had is there's a couple EV companies that have spun up. um Tesla did it by uh uh cutting corners, trying as hard as they possibly can to stay non-unionized.
Yeah.
and then there's a couple other companies like Rivian trying to aim for that, but it's just it leads to a very like interesting non-interesting market where I'm kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna buy the new brick from Samsung. I don't really care all that much. Um, like if there's gonna be meaningful competition, it kind of has to come from there being different platforms, but we've ruined that too because of the same thing.
Well, yeah. Obviously, like, there was a time where we were looking back and going, oh, great, there's Samsung, there's LG, there's Motorola, there's Google trying this weird thing where they get a phone made by somebody each year. And then obviously there was well, OnePlus and a long list, Asus, whatever, a long list of all these other companies that were kind of like our second tier, third tier, whatever, you know, the other guys basically. And yeah, we've changed that dynamic into most of the big names have been chased out of the market entirely, and now it's just Samsung. Google has come up basically buying HTC's the part of HTC that mattered, and then there are a few other companies that also exist. And then Nokia just kind of on the sidelines being like, well, or not, sorry, not Nokia, but
HMD Global.
that's it. Yeah, HMD basically kind of on the sidelines being like, yeah, we'll also make phones and nobody will care about these ever. But yeah, they sell
Nokia
in
is
Walmart.
they're so weird. Because like I get emails from their PR people occasionally, and it doesn't seem like they have like released like a non budget phone in forever. They seem to have given up on that entirely. Um, they went the Motorola route. You never go full Motorola where they just have like 20 phones and you don't know which one is better than the others. And then they have that weird side business where they're still making feature phones, which I have one. It's kind of fun. But I get emails about these sometimes where their PR people will be like, "Hey, this is a great like, disconnecting from technology thing. You can just have the feature phone." It's like, okay, guys, like, I know you have trying to look for a way to sell your thing, but it's kind of funny.
Okay,
Um,
but you know how many YouTubers love to do videos about?
I know
I tried going a month with a dumb phone, and
it is a very it is a very like fun like it's one of those things where like you think about it, you're like, yeah, I could do that, maybe that'd be good, and then like 2 weeks later, like I cannot do this.
yeah, you're
This was
throwing
a
your
bad
life
idea.
away with this kind of thing.
You're like, man, you guys used to live like this where you're
Yep.
pressing the number 3 4 times to press the letter.
Oh, good old T9, or
Yeah,
was that T9 or T7?
I think
Whatever the
it's
number was. I think it was
yeah.
T9. Um,
I got this one just for funsies mostly, and also for a while it was my only FM radio, so it was like a little fun treat.
yeah.
Um, and Diablo said, "Did the Segas ever come out?" Boy, do I have the Tech Tales episode for you. Uh, we did it over an hour. I think that was over an hour of Sega's talk. And we did not finish it. There will be a follow up at some point because the CEO of Segas was still in the middle of legal action when I recorded that. And I believe the lawsuits are wrapped up now. So I need to go into Pacer and pay to access those documents and do a follow up. But yeah, because eventually I think it was the FTC, and it wasn't. I think it might have been the FTC. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was the Department of Justice uh, sued the CEO for investor fraud because he was basically running a not pyramid scheme. I think it was. I think it's like a Ponzi scheme where basically he's just using new investor money to pay off old investors for forever, and you know,
Hmm.
spending all the money on things that aren't the phone. But yeah, that's a good Tech Tales episode. So yeah. Anyway, in conclusion, I just buy the normal. Just give me the new brick. I'm Give me the boring smartphone brick. I'm not really interested in competitors at this point because they're never like better in the ways I need them to be. Like when smartphones are so similar, I'm looking at how's like the software looking in the long term, and that's where they always go wrong. It's like, will this get security updates in a year? Who knows?
Well, speaking of things that should be better than they used to be, Intel.
Mm,
Yes, I'm going to drag us back on to our topics. So Intel is announcing new processors. Uh, Corbin, I'll actually leave this one to you to explain because
okay.
I read most of these things at some point, but only partially.
Yeah, Austin says spoken like a true ice sheet. Yeah,
Oh, by the
I'm a
way,
shill
also hello
now.
to Carbon to Carson.
Carbon.
Carbon, yeah.
Who's making emissions in here? I'm sorry.
I don't know, but they've been altered. Haha.
So, um, so yeah, Intel finally released or announced its new. I believe this is the 14th gen Intel laptop chips. These were the big daddy, the ones that were supposed to change everything, make Intel far more competitive with Apple Silicon and AMD's newer stuff. And they're just kind of okay. Seems to be I've not like done a ton of research. I was writing about this when it was announced, but obviously that's before like people have more of the laptops using them in hand so they can do testing. So I think it might be a little while longer until we get like some really good numbers on this stuff. Um, but basically these are the Intel 4 process, which I believe is 7 nanometers. Intel's not really like the millimeters like don't really mean anything anyway, but it's a smaller process than their previous generation. um it has more they're doing more of like the hybrid core stuff, so they now have like, in addition to performance cores and efficiency cores, kind of like, the big little architecture that ARM processors had for forever. um there's like a new like more efficient core that's supposed to be used for like more kind of background stuff. So the idea is that battery life is a little bit better using that. um of course, because it's 2023, this press release has to vomit AI. These have some specialized hardware for AI that is, it seems like right now is mostly just going to be used for stuff in Windows, where like, kind of the same thing that like newer Macs have on macOS, where like you can do real-time camera filters and like do like noise cancellation on microphones, that kind of stuff. Intel showed some I can't remember any of them, but they showed some applications they're working with to get optimized for this. So that might be a thing where in 6 months it's far more impressive once all this starts shipping. And besides that, the higher end chips have Intel Xe graphics, so they're using the same branding that they're using on their dedicated GPUs. Sorry, that's an alarm. And the benchmarks I was looking at do indicate that the integrated graphics got a big jump here, so that's good. Of course, a lot of it's funny that graphics was such a big focus, and almost every laptop I've seen with one of these chips also has like an RTX like 4060 or whatever, 4050. Just because it's still not enough. You still need something else in there if you want to do like actual work or actual gaming. Um, and there's some other stuff too. The branding is different, so these are the names are Intel Core Ultra 5 and Ultra 7. So they dropped the I part. They said they were going to do that earlier this year, presumably because people would just say like i5 and i3 when Intel would like them to say Intel, Core or whatever. But here you can just say Ultra 5 or Core 5 or whatever you want. So it seems like this is just making it more confusing. Um,
Intel's chasing a vanity thing.
yeah, and also like I guess the I part is sticking around, or they're just going to be called Core for all the chips that are not Ultra, because there are no like i3 equivalent announced here. So I don't really know what the story is going to be with that. So who knows? But yeah, they seem better, but I was kind of hoping for more. Not really expecting more, because like at the end of the day, Intel is still kind of working to modernize a platform that is very convoluted. Like just the way 64-bit x86 is built makes it kind of hard to do like meaningful efficiency improvements, and Intel is not willing to rip off that band-aid entirely and try developing ARM stuff. Like even 10 years ago, remember we had some like Android phones and tablets with Intel Atom chips in them because they thought that was a good idea. They thought they could do that.
Oh, believe me, I remember it because it was 1 year at Google I/O. Well, actually 2 years in a row. We were invited to visit Intel's like press people or whatever they were to talk about this exact thing, and oh boy, there's no more polite way to say it than it was like getting a timeshare pitch for a thing that that you'll never use. And as people who use and like review Android phones, to sit there and look at products and be like, yeah, we're never actually going to touch these, right? Like, these will never actually find their way into our hands. Our job is to handle and use these things, and even we don't think we're ever going to see them again. That was not like, good.
That was like firmly after like the netbook era, when like everyone knew in their hearts that the lower end Intel chips were just so painful. Yeah, it's so like kind of frustrating. I guess I should say I do have Intel stocks. So that's my disclaimer I forgot about. So you can feel free to call me an Intel shill. That's fine. I feel like everything I've said up to this point indicates that I'm not, but that's for you to decide, viewer. But yeah,
we all know the decision.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was more happening here. I don't know how much farther they can push x86, and it feels like the industry is slowly moving towards ARM. Kind of just waiting for someone who is not Apple to make some good options there on personal computers. Because also the interesting thing that's happening here is that Intel is working on making their x86 chips as efficient as possible, while still making performance stuff on desktops. And AMD has been doing the same thing, but they've had an easier time because they're using TSMC fabrication. So they can have, they already have the smaller processing nodes that are taking Intel for forever because Intel is building all of its own factories itself. Um, and so while those are going on, Apple's doing their own thing, which appears to be working very well for them. Again, they're now in the same boat as everyone else, where the generational improvements are not that meaningful. But they're still, it feels like, in a stronger place with this stuff than Intel. And then in comes a new challenger, where I think it was Reuters reported a couple months ago. I think it was them, that NVIDIA is going to try making ARM CPUs, and also I think maybe AMD. I think that was in there too, but NVIDIA would be very interesting, because they have like dabbled with that in the past. Well, obviously they make the chipset in the Nintendo Switch, and they made those Tegra devices for a while. So them coming back potentially, back in the ring with the folding chair to just smack Intel down, is very interesting. I do want to see where that goes. So this does kind of feel like where Intel maybe needed to prove they could keep evolving, and I don't know if they really hit that, but more importantly, they are establishing themselves as TSMC, but not in contested international situations. So that's more important for them, probably.
Wow. Adam would be so proud of you for making that reference.
I know.
No one will know what I'm talking about. But
Diablo said, did the stocks rise after this announcement? I don't know. They've been going up for a while. I don't know if it's really related to this or not. So this was a week ago. Let me look at a week.
I've noticed a really interesting trend this year where almost every time a company announces something that you think, oh, this should like give them a boost in the stock market, nothing. Yeah. Like, you can't tell. There's no sign anything even happened that day. But if a company announces something that is like, we expect it, we think this should happen, like, let's say they don't announce anything AI related like Apple did, or what they do announce is really lackluster, kind of like what Microsoft did a few months ago, or maybe it was Google, I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is, if it's not interesting enough, then you see the stock just absolutely tank for like a day, and then it usually just recovers over the next two to three.
There's definitely like a couple things going on where the if we're pretending this is real,
the stock market isn't fake. Yes,
right. That the price is supposed to be indicative of like where this company's going to be in the future. So in a way, like, the day they announce something is maybe not like that important. You're kind of waiting for, like, I guess the sales on these new chips, where they go. Also, like, I don't know how much investors really pay attention to, like, does the CPU benchmark enough to sell laptops? Like, they're kind of more interested in, like, again, like, oh, they're building factories that could be used for a bunch of other stuff, over the next 20 years, or, oh, the PC market as a whole is like recovering, so, Intel's gonna be stronger or whatever. But also and finally, there's the thing where just none of this matters, and the prices don't really seem to mean a whole lot, and they're very dependent also what is happening externally. If China starts World War III, Intel stock is going to go down, but because of things nothing Intel is doing specifically.
Yeah. And I like what Austin said. Layoffs are the new innovation.
Yeah. Everyone's stock goes up after you lay off all the people who got you there.
Yep. And video game companies have really just they've demonstrated they are some of the best innovators of 2023. Like
Hmm.
they have figured out the magic to making their companies better. No employees.
Yep.
Oh
So
boy.
yeah, I'll be interested to see like when we start getting more laptops with these and they can get more testing where we're at. But I don't know. I'm definitely more interested in whatever Nvidia does. Um, that's going to be interesting. I kind of like to see what AMD does, but you know, still kind of the same thing where it feels like these companies need to be looking beyond x86. Um, and honestly, like it is very early days, but also like Risk is very slowly becoming something interesting, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of movement on that from like any of the major players. I know Qualcomm is going to really they said they're working on a smartwatch chip that's Risk. So I guess
Risk
that's a
V.
good
Yeah.
starting, yeah, that's a good starting place for them. But I don't know, Risk V might become an issue because the
Because of
United
China.
the United States government doesn't like that China can access it because it's open source. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you know those darn open source licenses. I'm worried President Joe Biden is going to delete my GitHub profile because it's all open source software over there. I can't I can't let China use PhotoStack.
uh, I would love to make jokes on that, but I just don't know what I would say. Uh, it is funny how open source has or can become a political bad thing. Oh, our world
Yeah,
is so screwed.
I love I love protectionist policies. They're so great.
Oh yeah. So, uh, I don't know. Do we?
On
Do
the
we?
off, on the other hand, that's why my Intel stock is doing
True enough.
well.
Um,
uh,
I will briefly say, and you kind of touched on it, but the Intel, the new chips coming with AI. One of the things I find very interesting about that is we don't really have a good way. We still don't really have a particularly good way of benchmarking AI performance, and we still don't like all of these companies that are releasing chips are releasing different versions of what they consider to be important for AI or the hardware that they're including. It's not like this is just a coprocessor that everybody is making. It's each company saying, "Oh, well, we came up with what we think is going to be useful for accelerating AI, and they're putting it to hardware and bundling it into these chips, but right now we don't actually know that there's software that's ever going to use most of this stuff." And that's obviously not the case with like Google's Tensor chips because Google is very much making Tensor to service its own software. Like that's 100% going to get used because Google's going to use it for itself. They're really not even opening the chips up that much to anybody else. What Intel's releasing, we don't know how useful that's ever going to be. They're just including a thing that's supposed to be good for AI and may never get used. So,
yeah.
on the other hand, maybe it will get used. You know, because Intel and Microsoft do have obviously a famously close relationship. Um, and with Copilot being a big part of the Windows push, maybe these two will go together. That's kind of one of those we'll just have to wait and see kind of things.
Yeah, I know they talked about some of the stuff in like Windows itself that can use that, like the camera and microphone effects. But yeah, we'll have to wait for those other applications they're supposedly working with to do something. Because that's also the big thing where like kind of the focus on AI is like generative stuff, but like it's not we're not at that level where like that's gonna run locally on like a little core in Intel's laptop chips. It's gonna be a while before we get to that.
Yeah.
Like if you want to run, stable diffusion, you still kind of need like a beefy NVIDIA card.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really curious if something like Stable Diffusion is going to be updated to actually be able to take advantage of this hardware in any meaningful and useful way. Uh, and like what parts of Stable Diffusion? Like, is it going to be better at language processing as a result of these chips, or will these chips factor into like, will they actually be useful for, let's say, image generation or video processing, things like that? The fact that supposedly like camera effects, live camera effects would be something that these can do, presumably that, image and video would be something that they're supposed to be good at, but we really don't know yet. And
Mhm.
I don't know how much Intel's even saying or sharing about that at this point. But anyway,
Uh,
do you have any more
Kir-
you want to
I
say
was
on
gonna
that?
say, Kirby said hopefully Windows 12 can use the E cores in modern Intel CPUs and/or the AI cores in NVIDIA's RTX GPUs, since the focus with Windows 12 is on AI. I mean, again, based on what Intel said, Windows is using the the AI cores in these new Intel chips in Windows for like the camera and microphone effects, that stuff. I don't. I think the AI hardware is different from just the efficiency cores. I don't think that's what the efficiency cores are more for, just like that's where the Windows can offload tasks, so not everything is running on the performance cores and sucking up more power. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the game plan is with Windows 12 yet either. Um,
I'm not sure Microsoft knows the game plan for Windows 12. Actually, by all
no.
accounts, they really don't yet. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think no matter what, like some of these hardware features, like the AI cores in particular, I'm sure they will find uses. Will they find it? But is this going to be kind of like how Google releases features and says, "Oh, this only works on tensor chips," and then like a few days later, somebody sits down, tinkers with the APKs, and is like, "Oh yeah, no, I just enabled it to run on everything."
Right.
You know,
Yeah. It's like, in theory, it would be in everyone's best interest to actually do the work here, because if you can sell a laptop based on not even like AI being a buzzword or whatever, but in terms of like I really like the camera effects on my Mac. Like, this is cool. I've got the little fade, and I'm not using Google Meet or Jitsy's like busted fade effects. Like, this is cool. So if you can sell a laptop that's like, hey, this has AI stuff, but like it's like the useful AI stuff, and Windows can actually take advantage of that properly, like that's how you sell a new laptop to someone. Um, and also for Microsoft, potentially how you get to be like, you get the best Windows 12 experience on the new Intel Core Ultra 7. Um, so that'd be interesting to see what happens there.
yeah. Oh, so well, things to maybe hope for, look forward to, though. I I think I think it's reasonable to be a little skeptical, at least of this generation. And to be fair, that is kind of the thing. This generation, they're kicking off including AI as a relatively standard part of the product. Um, it may be a couple generations before we actually see that hardware put to good use, and by then the hardware will also be a lot better. So, yeah, I don't know that I would place a whole lot of value in this current or this upcoming generation, but we'll probably see bigger results in 3 years, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I was gonna say something that I completely zoned out and forgot.
That does happen.
Um, yeah. I will say I am trying to use Windows as little as possible. So I'm not the target market for this product.
Well, yeah. I think that's I think that's become a universal thing for a lot of us. But yeah, anyway. I don't know. Do you have anything else on this one?
Um, just that there's I'm very interested in this like processor architecture battle that's going on right now. And, this specific news is very underwhelming.
Yeah,
That's what I have to say.
the specific thing is, yes. I think it's more that I certainly I'm looking more towards, or I'm more interested in, and you brought it up. A Will ARM take over? Will Risk V become part of the story? Is x86 dead, or will it possibly get morphed into something that we will actually like again? Yeah, there are a lot of ways that could go. I agree. I think that story's way more interesting. This particular generational update, it's a little interesting because of the AI. The rest of it is it's Intel just trying to get a new product out the door.
Yeah, because now that I'm like firmly entrenched on Mac, I'm looking at x86. I'm like, well, if they can get like almost there to what Apple's doing, but that I can still play video games, that's really compelling. Intel doesn't seem to have got there yet. I'm been spoiled by my MacBook Air that is completely quiet. It's really fast. It goes to sleep when I shut the lid and doesn't wake back up until I open the lid back up. That was an issue on the Surface Book 4 that I bought before that computer and then sold, where the laptop kept waking up, and it was because an HP printer driver just wanted to wake up the computer inexplicably. So, if all these things could get figured out, I'd be tempted, but it seems like we're not there yet.
Diablo, that's good. But what is a fan should actually become one of Apple's new commercial concepts? Yeah, just do a bunch of segments of like people walking by and not realizing their computer's on or something, or do kind of like the PC, like I'm a PC, I'm a Mac commercial, but not as blatant as that. But yeah, just people who are sitting in a room with their obnoxious desktop fan, and then cut to somebody who's got a Mac and just dead silence.
Yeah, that is another like kind of going back to the architecture stuff that's been interesting, is because my laptop is now technically just a overpowered tablet. Like, I know from my perspective, and also when I've talked about this with other people, like the idea of like working from a tablet is just completely dead. There's no point anymore. Like if you can deal with like a MacBook, or I mean that's really it, then like why would you work from a tablet? You're getting work, because like I was definitely one of those people where on and off I'd have like I said whatever Samsung tablet with a keyboard. I had an Asus transformer pad. Like the idea of having this like instant on thing with really good battery life, and I could still like type on it. That was pretty good. That it worked for me sometimes. Of course, it's still a tablet, so I couldn't do everything I wanted. But now I have a big tablet that I can do work on because it has Unix.
Yeah, I what you're saying though, I think it unavoidably drags us back into that question of, well, what is a tablet? It's obviously like, I think we all know what you mean when you say tablet. You're talking about something that runs Android or iOS, but obviously the form factor of a tablet could run Windows. It can run Linux. There's no
Yeah.
reason that we can't have a tablet running Mac OS proper. We just don't have that. Apple hasn't made that, or well, not publicly. So yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes one of those classic, like, the form factor is part of the discussion, uh, but
Right.
it comes
Yeah.
down to OS. It comes down to hardware specs. It comes down to what the companies are willing to make.
Yeah. Part of it for me was definitely like partially based on the portability, like a tablet like being smaller, it was easier to like shove in a backpack or whatever. But yeah, the main selling points have progressed to just Apple's normal laptops. So really there's no benefit to like me trying to work from an iPad, except that like, like Kirby brought up, cellular isn't really a thing on Apple's laptops yet. That can still be cool in certain circumstances, or if what you're working on is better on a tablet. My work sure isn't, but maybe you're an artist or something, uh, or you just need to type emails. That's your job. Um, can definitely do that on an iPad about as well as a laptop.
Right.
Yeah, the Panera killing people. Yeah, that's fun. Are you familiar with that, Cody?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah, the
charged
lemonade.
lemonade.
Yeah, the lemonade.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that is possibly one of the most ridiculous things from this year. The mere fact that they're packing more caffeine into a so-called lemonade than they are like Monster energy drinks. That's nuts.
Yeah,
And
the
you
mis
can free
the
pour it.
yeah, the mistake was definitely calling it lemonade. And also that I think part of this was like they were letting you do like free refills on it in their stores or whatever, so you could just keep chugging the
Mm-hmm.
very energy condensed lemonades. Uh, yeah, those were fun. Um, but yeah, Kirby said if gaming on Linux was a thing, I'd never used Windows again. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. That's also the difficult thing going into like the architecture discussions with Linux is that it is very behind with that stuff. Um, where Linux, in terms of like the operating system, has obviously been fine on ARM for a while because Google made a lot of those changes for Android, and other companies invested in that before. But in terms of like the app ecosystem, uh, ARM is very rough on Linux. Um, Obviously, if you're gaming, then ARM isn't really discussion at all. But that is something that's been a little bit more frustrating with me, where uh, if you're not using like an x86 computer with Linux, uh, FlatHub is worse. There's fewer like snap packages. Basically, every like proprietary app does not compile for ARM Linux. So like I remember when the Pinebook Pro was announced, I'd be like, hey, that's kind of cool. Like, what can I actually, can I have everything I need on there? No, the answer is no. Uh, like there's no Slack app for Linux on ARM. There's no Skype. There's no. At the time, I was using Dropbox. No Dropbox. Um,
Yeah, well, this is, to some extent, this is where we're kind of drug or dragging, whatever, I don't know. We're sort of forced to go kicking and screaming back into that issue of like making apps themselves somewhat portable, like making the entire ecosystem of apps portable to different operating systems. I mean, obviously you can kind of run it Android apps on Windows, sort of. You can obviously run stuff inside of emulators. We're not counting that. Uh, Apple's obviously, you know, brought iOS apps kind of to sort of to Mac. Um, but yeah, ultimately, the thing that makes the thing that could give Linux a lot more sort of viability is by not just having something like Wine that, or well, I guess it is having something like Wine, but basically, you know, bring the runtimes from other operating systems over to Linux, and lo and behold, you can have Android apps running sort of natively. You can have uh, all kinds of things working where you didn't really have them before. And it's not that this can't be done on Linux, it's that it's not done very well, or it hasn't been done for a lot of things. Yeah, Diablo bringing up Chromebooks. Um, yeah, the way to do it is not the way that they did it on Chrome OS.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah. Anyway, uh, do we continue or
No.
nope? Okay. So I figured I would bring everyone a gift because you all know me. I like to wander around Reddit once in a while and just check out the various things that can be said on there. You know, it's a huge pastime of mine, I swear. Anyway, I was checking out a very popular sub. Some people may know it. AITA, also known as Am I the Asshole? And I came across a post that I think I think people might enjoy. So let me read it out loud for you. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting on R Am I the Asshole? But recent events have got me wondering if I might be missing the mark. Hear me out. So, I recently took the reins at a social media company, and I've been making some unconventional decisions. I've made some posts and memes that seem like I'm just having a laugh, but I genuinely believe in the power of humor and memes to connect with people. Am I the asshole for trying to make the social media experience a bit more lighthearted? Now, about the moderation and content policies, I'll admit I've been a bit hands off. I value free speech, even if it means things get a bit chaotic. Some might say I'm not taking the responsibility seriously enough, but am I the only one who thinks the platform should be a space for open expression, even if it means things get messy? And let's talk about the market. Yeah, my tweets might have an impact on cryptocurrencies, but isn't it just the nature of the digital world we live in? Am I the asshole for thinking that financial markets should be adaptable to a new kind of influence, and maybe we shouldn't take everything so seriously? I get that my communication style might come off as dismissive or sarcastic, but it's just how I am. Am I the asshole for being myself? Should I tone it down and conform to the more conventional CEO image? Or is it okay to be a bit eccentric? Look, I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but I've misjudged things. Am I the asshole for thinking that shaking things up and challenging the status quo is worth the risk? I'm open to criticism, but am I truly the asshole here for trying to do things my way? Oh, sorry, this was signed by Elon Musk.
Oh. Okay.
Diablo got that one.
Yeah, I think he is the asshole.
Yeah. So admittedly I did not find that on Reddit. It somehow this was a good moment where I thought, I wonder how good ChatGPT would be at creating a AITA post for this specific situation, and honestly, second attempt, dead on. I did have to make a couple minor edits at the beginning because it straight up said, "Hey Reddit, Elon Musk here," or something like that. So I did have to take that out to keep the mystery alive. But yeah, this was otherwise basically directly from OpenAI.
You didn't get Grok to do it.
You'd have to subscribe. Grok
Yeah.
is subscriber only, and I'm not giving money to Twitter just to make fun
Yeah.
of Twitter.
Yeah. Unlike everyone else doing it, and crypto people.
Yes.
Those are the two groups.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, this one it it beautifully hit some of the points. I was tempted to go back in and add like a few more bits just to make it even more obvious. You know, something about Nazi speech or supporting Putin, but I figured that would be going overboard, and I like the idea of keeping this. We'll call it pure. Anyway, so I guess on to Beeper
okay.
because yeah, we're closing in on the end here. I swear. Uh
Okay. Well, I probably need to go after this one. So
yeah, okay. Well, this one and the next one are at this stage kind of short. So everyone obviously has been hearing about the Beeper drama. We've talked about it. It was on the last 2 weeks, I think, or at least last week. Um, the new thing is, yes, Beeper has come back this time around. Their new solution is that Beeper Mini can continue working, but in order to counteract one of Apple's new uh, defensive measures, it has to re-register with a Mac on at least a semi-regular basis, anywhere from a week to a month. And presumably, I guess this just means that it's in some sort of a challenge to a Mac, and it requires real Mac hardware in order to generate some kind of a code or token, whatever. Anyway, this um yeah, so they figured out that you could have somewhere between 10 and 20 people using the same Mac to generate this token. And basically, the Mac just has to be running and active when you need to do this like re-registration step. At this stage, I'm honestly just wondering how long, one, before Apple finds a way to nail down these people, and two, in the meantime, is this going to start like a cottage industry of people basically renting out their Mac registration?
this is the dumbest shit. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Like the way this has progressed is the funniest thing to me, because like we already had like the relay stuff where you've got a Mac Mini somewhere, you're either renting it on a server farm, or which I think is how normal Beeper works, where it's like as a service they've got a Mac Mini in a closet somewhere,
Yep.
or like Blue Bubbles, where you actually have a Mac Mini at your house or whatever, and it's just acting as your own private relay. And we've sort of slowly worked back to that, from having something that did not need an Apple product in the equation whatsoever to, all right, we've now made the original thing, but about as inconvenient, maybe like 5% less inconvenient. If you have a friend who has a Mac who doesn't mind, like, I guess, hopefully not getting their Apple account in some weird, like, banned state.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. Like, even when I was like on Android stuff, like I never really cared for any of this, because it just seems like, you know, very inconvenient. And now we're sort of back to that. I know this matters to some people. I really don't care all that much about iMessage. I have it now, obviously. And I do know that my
Privilege quarter.
yeah, my immediate family does like that I'm on there more, but I don't know if I really needed to like impress them in some way by switching. Like I don't think that part didn't matter. But I don't know. This whole thing is kind of silly. And I don't know. it's very weird situation because I know you're gonna bring up the Congress stuff, um, and I guess we can talk more about that in a second. But it is getting to like this very weird spot where the beeper people were very silly, where they're like, "Oh, I guess Apple just hates its customers." Like, I don't think you're the customer. though. Like, I don't think you are. Like, you're, basically using their service, and they were going to try to charge for this initially, which, like, yeah, like someone's working on it, so it does need to be paid probably. But also, like, when you pay for a product, I think you generally expect you're able to use the product, and their thing broke almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So they stopped the mandatory payments. Um, it's like I don't know what are we doing here, guys? Like,
Okay,
it's
so
very silly.
I do not say this in any way to defend Bieber, but just to clarify, because technically you are taking them out of the context that they intended, though they worded it so poorly that, yeah, it's a problem. But their whole thing about Apple hates its customers or doesn't care about their customers' uh, privacy and security was based around the whole thing where an iPhone user sending a message to an Android user is invariably giving up the privacy and security of their messages. Um, so it's not about the Android users
Right.
who's because they aren't Apple's customer, but it is about Apple's actual customers who bought an iPhone, and then when they try to message someone who's not another iPhone user, then yeah, they downgrade to an unsecure messaging platform. So I
Yeah.
I get the premise, but
Yeah,
yeah,
like it's
they're
not
they're
the
trying to they're trying to draw themselves as the heroes of this story, and they're not, at least not yet, and probably not ever.
yeah, like that's not the worst argument where it's like, oh, this company that cares so much about privacy and security,
Oh, hold on,
this company
I'll
that
be
cares
back.
so much about okay, this company that cares so much about privacy and security will downgrade you immediately if you talk to someone with an Android device. But not to pull out my Apple shill card again, but Apple never really cared about people not using their products. Like, that was very clear if you ever try to use iTunes on Windows or QuickTime Player on Windows. All of the like iCloud stuff on other platforms has never really worked all that well. There's kind of some web apps for it now, but it's not good. Really, it seems like Apple Music and sort of Apple TV Plus. Um, there is an effort to make that a good experience on non-Apple platforms, but it's still not comparable to like what other companies would be doing. We're like, I don't think there's an Android app for Apple TV Plus yet, right? And that's something that, like, every other streaming company, that's kind of mandatory. Yeah, the tracker app was bad. Um, yeah, again, we don't really know what they're going to do with RCS. Apple TV's now on phone Android. Okay. Um, yeah, not really clear what they're going to do with RCS. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. Again, like I was saying, like I, I've never like felt super compelled by iMessage. I realized like I'm not in the group of people where that would really be a big of an issue. That seems to more be like teenagers in school who all want to talk to their friends on iMessage and nothing else. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I might have talked about this on. No, I wasn't here last week, I don't think, but before that, where like Apple would definitely make a lot of money when if they did make iMessage like available on Android, but like as a subscription. But it's pretty clear why they're doing this. Is because once they get you in the ecosystem with iMessage and maybe other things, then it's like, all right, now we've got you. Now, when you buy something from the App Store, we get some of that. Maybe you go buy like cables and cases and stuff from us for your new iPhone. We've got you there. So I can definitely, it's the same thing as like, the Spider-Man games being on PS5 only. Like part of the goal there is to get you into their ecosystem where you're hopefully going to spend more money. Curry Mermaid said, I'm trying to get my iPhone people to switch to WhatsApp. Oh, yeah. I remember when I worked at Android Police, every single time I'd read about SMS stuff, there would always be the comments being like, wow, you're talking about you guys are still using SMS? We're using WhatsApp here in insert other country here. And it got really irritating. Because like I don't know if like I know WhatsApp is like the iMessage for everywhere else, but I feel like that's not really any better. Like it's better in that it works on more things, but also Facebook owns it. So I don't know if that's an improvement. Like ideally, if you're trying to push everyone to a completely different app, you can just go straight to Signal. But I understand if like, someone's already using WhatsApp, kind of hard to get them to move in the same way it is for a lot of the iMessage people.
Yeah. And sorry, the bit of an emergency pulled me away for a minute. But yeah.
Austin said my iPhone people don't take messaging advice from me after Allo. Oof.
Yeah.
You got burned. Yeah. That's understandable. I'm sorry.
To be fair, I never tried moving anyone over to Allo.
Yeah, I did. My only chat with Allo was, I think, like 2 people at Android Police when I needed to like write about it and try something in it. Like one of us would like text each other, and also Google Assistant where you could chat with Assistant. That was it. Only people I talked to on Allo.
Yeah. If you looked at my Allo contact list, it was Artem. I want to say maybe you, and then it was
It's possible.
And then my other phone line.
Yeah, you might have been who I was sending nudes to on Allo. I don't remember. It was someone.
Yeah, I kept telling you to stop.
Anyway. I used the thing where it made the chat bubble bigger just for that.
Oh my god. No, Allo was one of those where the thing is, I always, from day one, I kind of hated Allo, and not because of the gimmicky stuff, though admittedly I didn't think too highly of it for that either. I hated it because of the whole thing where it didn't use your Google account at all. It used your phone number. And I was always angry at that because, logically, there are a whole bunch of people who don't have phones. And here you have this thing that Google's trying to make universal, and they're locking it down in the same way that WhatsApp and SMS and RCS and whatever else, like, they're all locked down in the same way. And so for me, I always figured Allo was a step in the wrong direction for a platform that was kind of doomed to fail. So,
yeah,
I would argue I was right.
Yeah, and Google Messages is also so dumb. Like, I get irrationally angry when people start talking about that online, because it gets kind of held up as like, oh, this is what Apple should be doing. Like it's like this open. No, it's not. It's not open.
No.
Can I use a different app for RCS? No, I can't. It is just iMessage for Android. Like everyone you're talking to has to have this app installed. on their phone for the messages to work. I know for a while there was some interoperability with like Samsung's messaging app, but then their messaging app, at least in the US and some other places, just became Google Messages, but like with a custom skin. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
literally the same app. It's just like a Samsung mode. Um, so I like that's not any better. Like even Android Messages is in the same thing where like if you get a different phone, like you might have to do the like deactivate my phone thing on their online website, like you have to do for iMessage sometimes when it doesn't deregister properly, uh, which Apple had to do because they were getting into legal trouble. Anti-competitive stuff for when you switch from iPhone to Android. It's like, where'd my texts go? Oh, they're still being sent to the iPhone I don't have anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Um, so
So all these things suck, is what I'm saying.
yeah, well, and it is a hard challenge. We are facing that situation where no one can get everything they want because everyone wants like 3 to 4 different things, and they're always at odds with each other. I mean, everyone wants, first of all, a universal chat service, which is basically impossible already. A lot of people want end-to-end encryption. A lot of people want lots of diverse things that you can send, be it emoji, high def video, high quality images, audio clips. Um, a lot of people want something that can be sent just to a phone number. You don't want to have to know someone's email address or a special account somewhere. You just want to be able to send it to a phone number. A lot of people want a thing that doesn't require sending to a phone number. Um, you've got obviously people who are saying, and this one's a given, it shouldn't be locked to a single platform. You want some people who want extreme security. You want other people who are like, look, I just want to be able to send messages as if they're coming from just me. It doesn't matter if I'm sending it from my desktop, my phone, my this, my that. I just want to be able to send messages and have it all come from me. And yeah, you start putting these. Oh, plus you have a whole lot of people, and very rightfully, saying, I don't want Facebook owning it, and I don't want Apple owning it. I don't want any company owning this. By the time you put all of these wants together, you have a thing that basically can't exist and also somehow make money.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, this is me with computers. I'm just perpetually unhappy with all of the available options.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's like, all right, which one do I hate the least? Let's go.
exactly.
Right now, it's Mac OS. We'll see where check back in 2 years.
Yep. Um, and in a way, like, we do have a bit of a template for some of how we'd like this to go. Like, Mastodon, the Fediverse thing. Obviously, I forget who wrote it, but was it David Pierce? I don't know. Somebody at The Verge, I think, wrote this, basically saying, the Fediverse has become a template and a starting point for all these things that social media should become. While some of what he wrote, I don't necessarily agree with the premise or some of his examples. It does demonstrate maybe there's a path forward for messaging to be improved in this way. But at the same time, again, how many of those things do you have to give up to get the thing that isn't going to be owned by lots of companies? In particular, are you giving up security to allow someone, let's say, to read all of your messages? And how do you moderate a thing like this? How do you control the throughput? And there's a lot of problems here. None of them get answered easily. So
Yeah, and Diablo brought up the backdoor. Yeah, and that's also an issue where governments would really like to see those messages.
Yeah. And in in a way, it's it's certainly one of those things where you just really do not want random people in the government looking over the nude that you just sent across the wire to somebody
on Allo.
Right. Yes, on Allo. But at the same time, it's not the worst idea in the world that the government could maybe spot, I don't know, let's just say an oath keeper plotting to kidnap a governor. It's not like things like that have never been seen. So, it's hard to pick that good level in this situation. And I think we all know that scenario is probably going to come true again. So, yeah, it's tough. There is no perfect answer. And I think invariably we are stuck in that situation where people have to use multiple apps. There is a bit of a problem here where people who are so determined to just use iMessage, or the people who are determined to only use RCS and SMS, the people who are determined to make it all about Slack or Discord, these people are dumb. If you're determined to have only one solution for messaging, you're probably the problem. Wow, I turned that into a weird kind of judgy rant.
You're like, and that problem's name is this person.
Damn it, Austin. I blame you. Yeah. Kidding. But yeah, no, there's it really though. The people who aren't willing to install 2 apps are probably the reason why we're in this mess. I think very few people would really care that much about the whole iMessage thing if it weren't for the fact that they really want to be snobby about having iMessage when other people don't.
Yeah, this is, I was saying earlier, like, this is the disconnect for me, where I know the thing with iMessage is, like, primarily very young people feel like they get left out of social stuff if they don't have this, which is just latest in a long line of other things. I felt left out when other kids at school had their Nintendo DSs and I didn't. Not quite the same thing, but
well, it's not the same thing, but
it's in the same category. Yeah.
It kind of is. Yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking about this before. Congress, it has been asked, and yes, this is a story in a minute, but kind of jumping the gun.
We can jump to that, I think.
Well, historically, people have been saying, like, we need to legislate this. We need to have somebody we need to have government step in and basically say Apple can't do this. And the problem with that has consistently been, well, hey, it's only available on Apple's hardware. They're not making anybody use it. You literally can disable iMessage communication on your iPhone. It will work with just SMS and MMS. Period. You can disable that stuff. You don't have to sign up for iMessage service at all. That's an option. It's, from what I understand, pretty hard to do now, but you can do that.
I mean, you could. It's pretty easy to turn iMessage off. Because I was doing that when I was like in early stages testing on iPhone, and I'm like, I don't need it to go to iMessage at all. Like, that's gonna mess it up when I put the card back in my Android phone. So I had it off for a while. It's just a switch in the settings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So, but the thing is, the problem was never, okay, well, just to finish that previous point, Apple makes this a thing that is limited to its own hardware. They have that right. Like, that's a thing. Companies can do that. There's nothing justifying anyone to say, oh, we should have free access to this company's private services that they only offer to their customers. Like, that is a totally justifiable argument to make. The catch is that Congress or whomever is in a position where they also have to deal with the fact that Apple is leveraging societal factors into creating a monopoly thing. So the things that they're doing are not inherently illegal or even necessarily ethically wrong. The problem is we're asking government to literally say, oh, well, they made a cool thing and it's making other products seem less cool. And we can't allow that. And that sounds like a really dumb thing to sort of litigate. But then you have the other side of it where it's like, oh, but the end result of this is Apple becomes a monopoly where they control way too much of the market because of this thing. That's something
Right.
you can do something about. That's something you have to do something about before it gets to that point. So, you know, we do have, or there is an obligation to solve that problem. But solving it at any point up to the point where it becomes the problem makes it look petty and dumb.
Right. Like this, when I saw the thing where Congress was investigating this and sort of citing the Beeper Mini stuff, I was like, just gut reaction was like, "Are you kidding me?" 'Cause it's like there are so many things that the U.S. is doing poorly with tech. Like I can sit here for 3 more hours, Cody. I know you can too. We'll just go through them one by one. Like we don't have any privacy laws. We have
Data
other
brokers,
data brokers. We have other, monopolies in the tech industry. We're not breaking up big tech whatsoever. It's being allowed to continue growing as it is. Google's getting a little bit of pushback right now between the Epic lawsuit and the lawsuit over their search engine dominance. That's in the DOJ. I think that's still being litigated.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
did that even make it to trial yet?
I don't know.
I think they just said that they are going to
Okay.
take it to trial.
Yeah, but like, there's so many things that like I would really like the U.S. government to try to do something about. And iMessage interoperability is like so low on my list. I know it. Again, there's a world of a difference between like Congress people saying like we're looking at a thing and like an actual bill showing up. So we're not there yet. But like, I don't know. And also part of this feels ridiculous to me because it kind of like what you said. It's trying to fix the end result of like a completely different problem, and that other problem needs to be addressed. Where like the core issue here is that a primary means of communication for a lot of Americans is owned by like one company. That's right. That's the issue. And
Well,
there have been
that's one of two issues. The other one being
Right.
that they could achieve a technological monopoly on smartphones, which,
Right.
I mean, it's a similar problem, but it's a different problem.
Right. This would be a much bigger problem if Apple was not an American company. I think we would have been
yeah.
having this discussion much earlier.
I mean,
So-
we see how they're reacting to TikTok. It's plainly obvious. Yes, this would.
TikTok and how quickly we forget, Cody, how fast Huawei was knocked out of the U.S. smartphone market before they even showed up. So yeah, that's definitely
By the way, I'm also going to quickly just mention DJI. Look,
Yeah.
all the things that they want to do to DJI. We can. That's just drones. I mean, that's
DJI
a much smaller aspect, and it's taken very seriously because it's a Chinese company. So yeah.
Yeah. DJI, Huawei, ZTE,
Autel.
Although ZTE was, I don't think that was ever like national security interest. That was more like we told you guys you can't sell stuff to Iran. You keep selling stuff to Iran.
Yeah, that one actually was ZT's fault.
Yeah, that would do it. That would. Yeah, but yeah, so it definitely feels to me like this discussion should have been more about like how does SMS need to work and evolve to a point where like it remains like accessible but also like good enough, and that never happened, which led to Google dicking around for 10 years on something that would replace it, and Apple nailing it on the first attempt and then becoming the market leader here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so frustrating because again, like the iMessage stuff to me personally does not matter at all. So I get really I got the visceral reaction when I'm like, this is what we're worrying about, guys. This is it, not any of the other tech stuff, or let's be honest, things that matter more outside of tech probably.
Yeah.
That it's like we're gonna focus on okay, all right, sure.
Certainly,
It'd be great if like something happened. I'm sure. I'm just if we get iMessage regulation before we get like anything about data brokers, I will scream on this show.
Well, I'm going. Well, okay, yeah. By all means, do you. I'm going to say I won't care if it happens before. I just want both to happen.
Both, ideally, yeah.
I'm okay with it happening to iMessage first, just because it is a much easier topic to, or it's a much more singular topic, and it has I don't want to say less far-reaching aspects, but it is a thing that is they can focus on, hit it relatively quickly and simply, and just move on, or it should be that easy. Whether or not, because data brokers, there's so many aspects to that. There's so many much deeper complications, and it's going to affect way more than just like a couple companies. So
like definitely with iMessage, the two solutions you have are Apple, you are legally required to put iMessage on Android in some capacity, or you are legally required to work with Google on making RCS good enough where like most people can't really tell the difference. Those are the two. I would assume those are the only two options. Maybe there's a third fun option I don't know about, but
well, opening up the network so somebody else could become like a certified client app,
right?
Or even just making iMessage directly communicate with another service, and supporting a baseline set of features. So sort of what I've been saying they should have done with RCS from the start, but instead
kind of thing. I believe they're pulling back from this now, but that's briefly what Meta was trying to do with their messaging, where like you could the goal was to like direct message people on Instagram from WhatsApp and vice versa. That never really happened. I know they're like kind of turning that off now, but yeah.
But yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't like the idea that the DOJ needs to come in and bully Apple into making their cool messaging app available to the uncool. Like that's the narrative that they're setting up for. But
now,
well, go ahead.
Disregarding everything I've said before now, I think this would be a genius way for Democrats to get young people to actually vote. If Joe Biden gets on stage and says, "Hey kids, I will give you iMessage," Biden sweep across the nation. Trump has no chance.
Okay, I think the failure point on that is there's a whole lot of people who actually enjoy the idea of exclusivity here.
That's true.
So you might actually be driving a few iPhone owners to vote against him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the narrative of saying, "Hey kids, do you want a folding phone and also iMessage? We can make both happen." You know, we can make that happen for you. You can have the two together. You can have your chocolate and your peanut butter in one cup.
Yeah. We just have to explain what texting is to Joe Biden first. And then he can do that.
Yes.
It's possible he doesn't know.
Uh, it's very possible, actually. But yeah, you know, this is a thing. It does warrant some kind of reaction. How it happens, when it happens, I'm reluctant to get too deep into that. But
yeah, this to me is like 1% likely to happen. Because it seems like just getting Congress to do literally anything is already almost impossible. And this is getting Congress to regulate a company that is based in America. We don't really like doing that. So
we certainly are bad at it, yes.
I'm not putting great odds on this right now, but yeah, never know. Might be one of those weird like things that goes to like some department that isn't Congress to implement. Like maybe it goes to the DOJ or something. I don't know. Or there's like some weird loophole in some other law that lets this happen. That's how we pass most laws now.
Yeah.
Good times.
So, and I am going to take a minute to sort of sidestep into the more, wow, Congress really sucks at this aspect. In particular, so a few people have really already hitched their trailers to this thing. Like they want to be the name that's attached to forcing Apple to open up iMessage in some way. And let's see. So Klobuchar and Amy Klobuchar and Mike Lee, they wrote, I guess, a joined message or like whatever. Anyway, quoting them, they are concerned that Apple's recent actions to disable Beeper Mini harm competition, eliminate choices for consumers, and will discourage future innovation and investment in interoperable message services. Just that passage alone, it's funny because you can read into it and immediately pick up, oh yeah, they don't understand how this shit works. Like straight up, the technology is a step over their heads and they just genuinely don't get it. Beeper Mini, disabling Beeper Mini is not harming competition. If anything, it's actually encouraging more competition to exist outside of this.
Right.
The existence of Beeper Mini would have actually discouraged competition because more people just use that instead of trying something like Signal or WhatsApp or whatever else. And not only that, but I mean, nobody was ever calling iMessage an interoperable messaging service. If anything, again, it's anything but that. But they don't understand, and they're not asking the questions. They don't ask somebody who actually knows about this stuff. They're just latching on to the piece of news that they read or heard, or that somebody emailed to their office, and this is a thing that they feel that they can latch onto and use it so that they can yell and scream about another thing.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing insightful to add. Just
good.
This situation's very silly.
Yeah. So, all told, I mean, this is a dumb situation. It shouldn't exist. Beeper Mini, don't get me wrong. I don't think that they're necessarily the best company to be doing this. They're not particularly big. They're not particularly powerful. And something that I brought up in Discord at one point was basically saying if they could have launched this, and instead of getting 100,000 users or however many it was, if they had gotten 5 million, even a million, if they could have pulled out millions of people, overnight, Apple would be in a much harder place. Apple would be in the position of having to turn off millions of people all at once. That would have been a disaster for them. That would have hit the nightly news. CNN, Fox, everyone would have been covering that. No one's covering Beeper Mini except for tech sites, and I guess Bloomberg kind of got into it. If it's a big number of people, Apple has a PR nightmare on their hands. It's Apple being able to say, yeah, no, this is about privacy and security. That's it. No big deal. Just some hacker company trying to break into our stuff. That was the mistake. And we needed a bigger company to be doing this. Beeper Mini is not Batman.
Yep. Yeah, so that was fun.
All Beeper wanted for Christmas was to get paid by Blue Bubbles, or paid for Blue Bubbles. But yeah, anyway. So, let's see. I assume you sound tired and ready to go work on laundry.
Yep.
I am similarly ready to depart. So, is there anything you would like to plug, sir, before we wrap this up?
Just go to spacebar.news and give me your email address. You don't have to do that. There's also you can subscribe with RSS or Mastodon or Google News. It's in Google News. So go read it. Trying to write more on there. I wrote about the games I liked this year. That was a fun thing on there. So
cool.
Yep.
But Corbin would really appreciate it if you give him your email address, because secretly he is a data broker.
Yeah, it's true. There's a weird person who keeps asking me for my mailing list in return for Target gift cards, so I have to give it to them.
Yes. So go check out the Space Bar. It's it is a thing. It's readable. And it's free. So, that's always a plus.
And it needs a better logo. I got to work on that.
I was actually just looking at that. I kind of liked it.
It's good in when it's big enough, but when it's, tiny, like social network size, you can't read it.
Yeah. I got to give you that. You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the concept of it. But yeah, it in square format, it's a little challenged because it definitely looks more like letterhead design as opposed to icon design.
Yeah, I gotta pull all those other sites that have like a short logo, like an icon next to their bigger name. I don't like doing that because it's inconsistent, but
yeah. But all right. Anyway, and to answer Curvy, I had completely forgotten until just a second. To answer Curvy's question, I will definitely be streaming on Saturday. I think I will probably stream Sunday. That's going to be Christmas Eve. I don't know if it will maybe be a different schedule. Let me think on that, and I will get back to everyone. But yeah, otherwise, I will be streaming this weekend, at least Saturday. So, as usual, if anyone would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. Huge thanks to those who already do support the channel. Diablo, Carson, Austin, David, and Curvy Mermaid. You're all awesome, and I love your faces. But with that, thank you all for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation. I hope you have an excellent rest of the week, and I will see you in the next one. Good night, everybody.
Bye.